The Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast is presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Sign up for DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the app. Use promo code RTRS and brought to you by LL Pavorsky Jewelers, where Rights to Ricky Sanchez listeners go and get engaged. Touchstone Home Products, Touchstone Electric Fireplaces. Get 15% off your order with promo code TTP at zerodeadbirds.com. And Adam Kasabi, the official realtor of the process, serving the Delaware beaches at processrealtor.com. On the show today, it's the fucking Celtics. So we had to bring in Zach Lowe, finally on the Ricky. We will have combined, all three of us, one beer with Zach Lowe, talk about the Sixers' current, past, future, talk to him about how much basketball he watches, like his whole process, which I thought was really interesting. And we will preview Sixers Celtics. As for the team that we talk about on this podcast, we're completely ignoring them all pod. No. They predictably go 4-4 in the bubble, end on a high note by beating the Rockets by 40 points. We'll give our predictions for the Celtics series and lament the sheer number of Sixers games that are going to happen in 1 week. The Ricky Dog bandanas are available. Go to rightsrickysanchez.com, anywhere between $7 and $15, depending on your the size of the collar. And normal size collar would be a normal price. They also come from Buddha Babe, like our masks. Handmade, locally made. Love it. Without any further ado, Amos and the chef.
Larry, sweetie, the man is here.
Say the name. I say the name. I say the name.
We were right, y'all. We were right. Even when it went wrong, we were right. We was right, y'all. We were right. So say the name. Say the name. We were right, y'all. We were right. Even when it went wrong, we were right. We were right, y'all. We were right. So say the name. Say the name. Say the name.
Welcome to the Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast. I'm Spike Eskin, along with a guy who maybe has talked himself back into the Sixers after that Rockets game. That is Mike Levin. Well, a little bit.
I read AU's article that the team almost broke him. Or
Yeah.
seemingly did break him. And that was necessary because I was starting to be like, it's the Celtics. Fuck it. Let's win this thing. I was there, and then I read his article, and I was like, no, that's right. And then I watched the game last night, and I'm like, let's just win. Let's just do it.
Well, I mean, truthfully, AU's always just looking for a reason. So he wrote that really as a cry for help for someone to give him a reason. And I have no doubt that when Sixers Adam is working on a roundtable with everybody's predictions, and I have no doubt that AU's prediction will be that the Sixers will beat the Celtics. I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that is coming. So
I don't know, man. I mean, they Bodner tweeted about it, but Sixers shot 41, 42% from the bubble from three. If that continues, they have a friggin' shot. And Embiid stays healthy. I don't anticipate it will continue because that's the way it goes, but I don't know. Neither of these teams want to face each other.
We'll get to that in a second. I want to leave the Sixers Celtics stuff for right before Zach. You mentioned Bodner. We got a good Apple Podcast. We don't do this every pod, but the Apple Podcast 5-star review of the week. We're at 2,221 5-star ratings. When we get to 3,000, the threat is still out there. That I will read all of the reviews from 2,000 to 3,000 when we get there. Subject line, Bodner is secretly banned. Reading the tea leaves, Bodner has to be the secretly banned individual. Number one, people would be shocked to hear Bodner is banned. Number two, Bodner and Neubeck, I think he means Hoffman, interviewed JJ. And three, Spike mentioned that they had an ugly breakup with one former sponsor, likely Bodner and the Athletic. Sincerely, one of the guys who wears Croatian Dario jerseys at live events. I don't know. I guess you just have to. I've made the comment that I will not confirm nor will I deny any comments on who is banned. So I'm just not confirming it or denying it. That's for me.
I will deny that it's not Derek.
Shit. Okay. Well, there you go. It is definitely not Derek. And by the way, I don't think people would be shocked to find out that it was Derek. To be honest with you, like there's enough like fake bravado between us to think
Love
that
Derek.
that's
I have too much
Yeah.
history with Derek for Derek to be banned.
We all have a lot of his. I mean, you have obviously pre-Ricky history, but I mean, we were big supporters of his paywall site, and then we went on to just make fun of him for having a paywall for several years afterwards. So, and the Apple Podcast 5-star rating brought to you by Kinetic Skateboarding, kineticsskateboarding.com. 9.1% off your first order with promo code Dave Silver. I will say, so since I've been vegan, like in the last 9 months, I've moved that to like the clothes that I wear. So I don't like buy leather or anything. And the Kinetic site every once in a while with the sneakers makes me like think twice about it. I'll go, well, you are getting a lot of use out of that, Cal. They have some New Balance up there that are awesome. Check the Kinetic website, but I think the Instagram is better for all the exclusive stuff they have up there. All right, the Rockets game. So the first thing that strikes me about the Rockets game, and it is comical, we've mentioned a few times, is Embiid holding his hand the entire time. Embiid, who has played 7 of the 8 games in the bubble, but it seems like he's missed half of them somehow, has left the game twice with injuries, ankle and the hand, and was holding the hand the whole time. Seems like the hand from 3 years ago.
Yeah.
I don't know. Part of me thought he was just acting because the way that the Rockets defend the big men is sort of like cheating a little bit.
Once again, they're whacking the shit out of him.
Yeah.
That happened in was it the Toronto game? Kyle Lowry? Marcus
Might
Gasol.
have been. Yeah.
And it's just like, guys, you're not allowed to just whack a guy in the wrist. That's a real, pretty clear foul call. And you would think, because you can hear everything in the bubble, that you would be able to hear the sound of a basketball, a hand hitting a basketball.
Mm-hmm.
And a hand hitting a basketball and a hand hitting a wrist, very different sounds. The refs should pick up on that and at least call a foul for, our center's mangled hand.
Yeah, now this has been the history of the NBA, is that the more physically imposing you are, sort of like they sort of make the judgment that, all right, this is going to be unfair if we call all the real fouls, so we're going to let them get away with stuff they wouldn't get away with on someone else. This happened to Shaq pretty consistently.
Yeah.
Like the only way for Shaq not to score 75 points a game was for you to foul him a little bit. But I think it is exacerbated by the fact that that the Rockets are so small. I think it adds to it. But yes, and I don't know. Part of me, you mentioned it in when we talked to Zach, but like part of me thinks that Embiid is going to be out of the series within the first 5 minutes of the Celtics series. He's been hurt so many times just in this little short period. Another note from the game is that the game opened up with Covington guarding Embiid. And by the way, not even on a switch, just sort of like Covington, oh, that's his guy. And it was just like a little nice moment, I thought, in process lore.
I think there's been a lot of nice moments. I mean, think about Jakar playing pretty well in the bubble and covering Embiid. TJ is, beloved and frequently mic'd up and, making things happen.
Jeremy Grant,
absolutely. Rashawn would have been here. He was here for a little bit. Who else? Who am I forgetting? Friggin' Luawu looks excellent.
Yeah. Yep.
He's so confident right now. I've been sort of holding back on talking about him because it's just like, I don't know. I love this guy, and went away. And by the end of it, kind of dropped. But Luawu looks absolutely confident. Almost beat the Blazers to allow the Suns, our Suns, to get into the playing game. He looks really good. I mean, there was still one fumbling the ball handling situation, but man, he's shooting the ball with confidence. He's penetrating. Seems like a guy the Sixers could use. There's too many times when we give up on guys too fast. That's just straight up the case. I don't believe that Jonah Bolden is one of those guys, but maybe I'll be
No,
proven wrong.
no.
But like,
Maybe we'll be proven right. Yeah.
keep getting, that's maybe that's an example of like we need to go back to being the teams that took a chance on the second chance guy, rather than the guy that drafts somebody good and then lets them go.
Right, because we don't have the time a lot of times.
Yeah, a lot of time to develop. Because especially when they miss their first season or two with a mystery illness or something.
Well, it's sort of what the Rockets have become. The
Yeah.
Rockets are scrap heap rather than
Totally.
let's draft them and develop them.
Ben McLemore, Austin Rivers, it's just like simplify the game for them once they've had like some level of disappointment.
The other thing I'll say about, and this is a Rockets thing, is it possible that I agree that the Harden criticisms are all correct? In playoff criticisms are correct. Watching him can be tedious are correct. But he is still underrated as I've never, everything, he plays at a pace. Like when you're watching him, he is never stressed about anything. He never seems like there's a doubt that he can do whatever he wants at any time. I've just never seen someone, it's sort of Peyton Manning-ish in the way that he has figured out offense. And I'm generally blown away watching James Harden. Every time I watch him for a whole game, I'm just like, oh, we have fucking no chance. He's going to do whatever he wants to do. And there's no screens anymore even. Like he just fucking does it. He's unbelievable. I think he is actually sort of like, I think the criticisms of him are obvious, but I think he's actually underrated in how good he is. He's probably the best offensive player I've ever seen.
Yeah, he's very good. He's at least the best offensive player in the league.
Yeah.
And hard to move defensively as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's excellent. I will give credit to Matisse for a really good game on him. Like I know he didn't play him the whole time. He probably only got a handful of times on him, but like poked it out a couple times, made him like the term that people use. I forget where it started. It might have been Arnovitz. The term that people use with the Raptors defense is like they close out so fast it's making people see ghosts, and Matisse kind of has that effect on people also. Once he gets you once with the
You think he's behind you all the time.
yeah, you think he's behind you all the time, and so Harden one time like had the open lane or for a floater that he always takes, and he was just like got scared because Matisse had got him a couple times. Just a really really nice Matisse game, and I that's a good boost of confidence going into the playoffs to 4 steals and 2 blocks in 17 minutes. Like that's insane.
Well, he had a block on a corner three, one of those where the fuck was he?
Yeah.
Like where did he come from? Sort of blocks. And the only other thing, the other two things I came out with from this game is Alec Burks he reminds me of the process in that you remember when we would get a point guard, and this is like sort of the Ish Smith effect.
Sure.
We were
What
so
was the Larry Drew effect?
Yes, right. Ish Smith, the most legitimate of all of them, is we would get a guy who was an actual point guard, and we would go, well, this guy is fucking awesome, because he would just at least be a normal point guard. Alec Burks is like the combination of dribbling and shooting that has been so like unavailable to us for 3 years, and he looked good, but his he is that for us right now. Like there's such we're so void of dribbling and shooting in one specific player, Shake aside, that seeing Alec Burks just being able to get to his own shot and like get to the line, he seems like he's the best player on the team sometimes.
I mean, he's certainly hitting everything right now, which helps that. Concerned that that's going to regress, but
probably
hasn't been turning the ball over as much as he had been. It's so weird. Like I do think that he doesn't have much court vision, and I do think that he will once in a while make the dumbest pass of all time. But there's kind of no in between. There's not like he's playing okay. He's either like, yeah, you can't guard him. You can't guard Alec Burks right now, or like Alec Burks is totally unplayable. I don't know what he's doing out there. And so they're gonna need him for sure. We talked to Zach about which role players and bench players should prioritize, but Alec Burks has to be on that list, and that's with like Neto playing pretty well lately too. It's like this is the last game of the season we finally get a 40-point win. The Sixers have never won by 40.
No.
And the last game of the season, going in the playoffs, where none of us feel confident. We all feel mostly existentially void. But just to sort of perk those ears up a little bit, the Sixers finally win by 40 against a good team, even with their bench players in. Hit a bunch of shots, move the ball well, play some defense.
Furk looked good.
Korkmaz looked good. O'Quinn is always passing out there. God bless Kyle O'Quinn, man. I wish that he was playable defensively because I really love him. There's no reason, by the way, why he's not any more or less playable than Greg Monroe was. So let's at least acknowledge that our standards have gone up. It was just a nice thing to see across the board. A lot of good stuff from that game. Tobias consistently looking good, getting the line a little bit. Thanks to Mike O'Connor.
Yep, he read. I'm going to give Mike O'Connor credit for that forever. I think he deserves it.
Yeah, Mike Scott continually showing he's playable. Glenn Robinson not being there is interesting because he is ostensibly the kind of guy that they need to just be a wing body on Boston. But he hasn't been healthy, so I don't know.
Hip pointer can be pretty painful if that's what they've diagnosed him with. So
yeah.
Yeah.
And we got to see a little Shayak.
Oh yeah, a little bit. Man, I fucking love Mariel Shayak.
He's so slow, man. He's so fucking slow.
Well, I said it when we had the night at the Blue Coats. First of all, he was fucking unguardable that night. He was in the G League. Shayak is a 13th grader. He could crush the G League.
Yeah.
But even in person, you watch him and you're like, oh my God, how is a person who is physically as fit as Shayak is? He looks physically fit. Be as slow as he is, and he is very, very, very slow.
He's very slow. He's not very athletic. Doesn't really defend. Wasn't my guy. I respect and appreciate that he's unguardable in the G League, and hope he gets to be some version of playable. But not one of my
by the way, that was what's his name for a couple of years, and he's a big, so it's different. But Christian Wood was 40 and 20 in the G League, and then would come into the NBA and look terrible. And now it looks like a playable NBA player. So I don't know. Maybe it's possible.
And just in case people wonder, have we changed too much since the Sixers got good? We are previewing Mariel Shayak in the playoffs podcast. So just everybody know that this is who we are.
So before we get to the playoff preview, and I want to have a brief conversation about the OKC pick, let's talk about our sponsor, Touchstone Electric Fireplaces. Somehow we've gotten to mid-August, which means that fall is right around the corner, which means that sitting at home, watching a movie with your loved ones, maybe the dog in the corner, sitting on the floor playing with a toy. Imagine that with the fire right there, but with a fire that isn't burning down your house or anything, isn't in a real fireplace, so you don't have to worry about smell and cleanup and going and getting wood and dead birds in the chimney. No, that's why you need a Touchstone electric fireplace. Easy to install, even on your own. Put it right in the wall there. They have easy instructions for installing it. Of course, you could pay somebody to do it if you want to do that as well. But has all of the advantages of a fireplace, the look, the fucking feel. There's warmth that comes from it. It looks awesome in whatever room you put it in, but without any of the drawbacks. And as somebody who grew up in a house with a fireplace that we used and made the family room smell like a campfire and ash in front of it and all that, and to clean up. And I have an actual fireplace now that I've never touched because I'm scared of there being dead birds in the chimney. A Touchstone electric fireplace is where you want to go. Go to zerodeadbirds.com. Use promo code TTP for 15% off. And when you go to the website, you can see all the different places you can install it. Put it right under the TV. That looks pretty wild. Put it in the bedroom, right? Are you a TV in the bedroom guy? I'm a no TV in the bedroom guy.
Absolutely TV in the bedroom. What year is it?
Okay, so I am a no TV in the bedroom guy. I'm thinking the Touchstone electric fireplace, how fucking relaxing and romantic would that be in the bedroom? I love that. Any size from 36 inches wide to 100 inches wide, all different displays, blue flame, red flame, different flame intensities. It is a local company. Frank and Touchstone, we love them. They're right there in Exton. Delivery in 2 or 3 days. And any question you have, They will, if you don't want to talk to anybody on the phone, that's fine. They have chat on the website. They also have email on the website, or you could give them a call. ZeroDeadBirds.com, promo code TTP for 15% off. Touchstone electric fireplaces. So I want to talk about the OKC pick, which not only was it a gift that we got the pick, it is a gift in that there is a lottery procedure for the OKC pick, which is a gift to us and us alone.
That's right.
They wind up in a tie, OKC, with Utah and Houston.
Mm-hmm.
And there will be a coin flip. I believe this procedure will happen on the night of the lottery, which I believe is Thursday night, to determine whether the Sixers get the 21st pick, 22nd pick, or 23rd pick.
I mean, first of all, delightful. Love a coin flip.
Mm-hmm.
What a gift to us that we're still involved in the lottery in some way. Second, like, man, there was a very, I know we reacted to it on the podcast last time, and I did mostly play-by-play for that entire podcast because that's all I care about.
Mm-hmm.
But like,
it was a great pod, by the way. It brought back memories.
Right, for it to play out this way, that this Oklahoma City team, this like, they thought that, I mean, no one had OKC really. Maybe you thought that they'd be like in the fringes, 8 or 9 seed type thing. But for them to have this good of a season, and then for it to convey, but then the season stopping, and then having this 8-game thing, and like us pouring over every statistical possibility, and it coming down to like basically the last night of the season, and getting it is a top 20 protected pick, and we might get it at 21. Like that's very fortunate. I just want to acknowledge, because there are few and far between like good, genuinely good things that happen. Just no strings attached. Like what a nice thing this was. I just want to acknowledge that we have been fortuitous for once in a long time.
Yeah, and by the way, like I think in a 7-game playoff series, the OKC would beat the Sixers in like 5 games. Like I think who is guarding Chris Paul? You know, like I that somehow that being a good team and being not just clearing the 20 barrier, but being possibly 23, the pick being possibly 23 because they're good. And one clarification, and numerous people made this to us, in that we were both right in the last pod where we discussed where that pick came from. It did come from the Ersan Ilyasova trade, but then we traded the pick away, and then we got the pick back in the Fultz trade. That's right. So it's seen a lot of places, that pick.
It really has. That pick is almost the process itself. Been through, touched a lot of hands, like a very dirty dollar bill. God bless it.
Do you? I mean, if we can, and I will investigate this. If we can guarantee that the coin flip will happen on screen and we can watch it, we got to do a live Zoom thing or something during the coin flip as a lottery party.
I don't think that they do it live on screen.
They should.
Also, we are doing podcasts after every playoff game, and this is on a night that there's not a playoff game.
I agree with you. Let's not do it. We'll just send a tweet.
Just individually enjoy it, everybody, yourselves.
Yeah, but it's like a virtual 5K like we have with Providence Animal Center. Everybody do their own thing, but we're all together at the same time. And we have made the announcement that one of our writers will be on after every playoff pod. So we will have either Michael Connor, AU, Sixers Adam, or Zoe on after every pod to help break up the Spike and Mike a little bit. So the Sixers play the Celtics. Starts on Monday night. They play 3 times a day for the next week. I do appreciate the 6:30 starts, I have to say, for me in particular. Game 1, I'm getting tattooed for probably the first half of the game, so I will be watching it on my phone while I'm going through pain in the left arm and the right arm. Why what?
Why are you getting a tattoo during the game?
Well, because I have an appointment. Like the couple of guys that I use, it's Tim Pangburn, who was going to do the one at the Mike Scott show. Like he books like 6 months out. I can't take a chance on another pandemic delaying this appointment. So I'll just watch while he tattoos me. I don't care. So starts Monday night, 6:30. we get into this with Zach, but your prediction, I guess, or not your prediction, your Mike, if you were the coach, who would you put on who starting lineups as this game starts on Monday night? What are your matchups, I guess?
I would certainly mix it up and throw different looks at them overall. But I would probably, for now, at the beginning of the game, I'd probably go Horford on Tatum and just let him, because he takes those, like, he loves dancing and taking those little step backs, and it's like, I'm fine with that. What I don't want is Tatum getting all the way to the rim. And so that's, to me, the most important thing. So let Embiid like dominate offensively, and he can cover like Dan Tice or whatever, and let Horford try Tatum, and then mix it up from there. I'd probably start with Josh on Kemba, and probably Shake on Hayward, and probably Tobias on Jalen.
Oof.
You don't feel good about any of those.
No.
But I'd mix it up and then put Matisse on Kemba for a little bit, and then Matisse on Tatum for a little bit too.
We'll make our predictions at the end of this, but like I've spent the morning basically like talking myself into the Sixers winning this series. When you start talking about the matchups on like live, it starts to bring me back to the "we're fucked" speech after the Celtics series 2 years ago.
That was one of your worst speeches, and I've had plenty, but that was always wrong. Just because they turned out to be fucked because of other decisions didn't mean that after Ben's rookie season and Embiid's first time in the playoffs.
Well, my point being that the Celtics had too many players that were like were this like and you are correct. This is like it's a different team for both organizations. But like the fact that the Celtics have so many players, it seems like that we have just no chance of matching up against was my initial point, that they had just a bunch of wings that we're not going to be able to do anything with.
And that's why when Kyrie got hurt in that series, they were a better team.
It's one of my best and worst moments. No one ever brings it up. People bring up the Millsap thing, but they never bring up we're fucked. I'm surprised that's not thrown back in my face. Okay, so I want you to pick the one player, and I'm going to do you want me? I'll start with the negative, and then we'll go to the positive. In this series, I want the one player on the Sixers who will ultimately disappoint us.
I mean, I would really be. It would. Look, Embiid's going to get every opportunity. They're going to post him up a bunch. I hope that they keep going to it. It's essentially their most effective offense, and I hope that he's very willing to pass out of the post, and then when he passes, guys are willing to shoot quickly, which is, from everything we've seen in the last 5-6 games, whatever, has been the case. I would personally be pretty bummed if Tobias had a bad series. I think that he's a really good guy. I think he's the leader of this team. They're obviously paying him a shitload of money.
Tobias is the new Brett.
He might be. And he has been playing better, and he's been, making a concerted effort to get to the basket, get to his spots, not just do 2008 Carmelo, like just stare everybody down for a while stuff.
Yeah.
And has improved on defense this year. And if he just has I'm just going to say another thing that just hurts. If he has like a 2017 Covington series against Boston, that would really bum me out.
So I actually think the player most likely to do that, I don't think it's Tobias. I think he exists in this world where I don't think he'll ever have a terrible series or a great series. Like, I think he'll always just, in the end of it, when we look at the totality of it, be Tobias. I think the person most I'm not saying he is likely to do this, but when I look at all the meaningful players and who I expect something of and who can possibly disappoint, and this is assuming that Embiid does not get injured, those sorts of things. I wouldn't say that's a disappointment of him. I would say that Milton is the guy that I think, being young and inexperienced and us not having enough of a resume on is the most likely for me to turn in a series that we're like, shit, he got roasted by. First, they had him on Kemba. He got roasted by him. Then he got roasted by Jaylen Brown, and he shot like 31% from three. Like, I think that could happen. It wouldn't be a referendum on Shake, but I think he is the most likely player for me.
Yeah,
For that to happen.
definitely agree with that. I think expectations for Shake are necessarily high, but I do
Trace
think people
McGrady.
have
Trace
like
McGrady.
sure. You can say Trace McGrady if that's what you believe. The I just think that like everybody knows here's a guy we drafted in the second round, didn't play last year really, and then all of a sudden became like very vital to this team. And so I think that my hope is that everyone's like, yeah, he's a little overmatched in this series against a bunch of smart like guys who can handle the ball and a lot of guys that can bang inside. And so he's essentially a rookie. This is his first playoffs. Like my expectations for Shake are pretty low. As just like hit shots, make a couple plays with your length, move the ball, and I think Alec Burks is going to play a lot. So if Shake can give us like 25 decent minutes where he's not like unplayable, if Shake's unplayable, then I think the Sixers are in a lot of trouble. But if he's just like fine, hitting open shots, that kind of thing, not asking him to do too much.
The one player on the Sixers who will surprise us and play better than we're expecting.
Well, after the friggin' 40-point win, I'll say Mike Scott. He's been looking good, and I think he wants to get back in that rotation, and Brett trusts him, and he's beloved by the team. He might be the most well-liked guy on the team. And so I think there was the stretch of him being bad is over. He's active on the court. He's hitting shots again. I'll say Mike Scott has a Brooklyn Nets-esque series.
I'm going Ferk. I just like, yeah. I love. They just need somebody to go fucking ape shit from three,
Sure.
and I'll go Ferk.
I think the defense very much concerns me with Korkmaz. As much as he
Yeah.
has gotten a little bit better, taking baby steps forward, I just think like if he's
Against
gonna
a
have to
team
cover,
like this, especially.
if he's gonna have to cover Kemba, he's gonna get blown by. If he has to cover
Put him on Tice.
Jalen or Marcus Smart, he's gonna get like pounded into the dirt. That's my concern with Korkmaz.
The one non-Marcus Smart, Kemba Walker player on the Celtics who will drive us crazy. We assume Smart and Kemba will drive us crazy. The one player who will be like, oh, fuck, yet another one.
I feel like the Sixers, the only way to win this series is for the Sixers to dominate the glass and actually be the bully ball team that they claim to be. And most of that comes down to Embiid, but Tobias is also a good rebounder. Horford needs to be strong. Horford's never been a great rebounder, but it would be nice to just get a couple extra possessions there. And if like Enes Kanter just gets 6 offensive rebounds a game and just cleans up the glass, and Embiid doesn't absolutely beat the shit out of him, that would be horrifying. And so I'll say Kanter as a preventative.
I'm going to say Tice or Williams is going to hit like fucking threes. It's just the ghost of, what's his fuck, who's on Phoenix now. Yeah.
Tice is good. I like Daniel Tice. I think he's a good player, and I think he's very solid. I think Embiid will foul him out in like 8 minutes.
Yeah.
At least one of those games. I don't think Robert Williams will play. I don't think Brad trusts him.
Well, unless they do the thing where they just use up fouls on every center they have.
Sure.
You know, just to because I would be interested to see if they just keep fouling Embiid.
I would love
whether he just keeps doing it.
I would love
whether
it. He loves getting the line. We talked about him when we had him on the podcast about how much he likes getting the line and why he doesn't understand why more people don't do it. I would absolutely love that. The Sixers need to get to the line more than Boston, and that ultimately comes down to Embiid basically. But they need to not foul Boston. If Boston wants to take a bunch of step backs and Marcus Smart wants to fire from 30 feet away, fine. But like we cannot just keep letting them like parade to the line. There's no way that we'll be able to play enough high-level offense and efficient defense to keep them from, if they can just keep getting the line, then it's just not going to happen. So they have to be really judicious with their reach-ins and stuff.
It's game 7. The Celtics are up 106-105. There are 14 seconds left. You have to give the ball to one person. Who are you giving the ball to?
Joel. Always Joel. That's the guy. He's the guy. Let him be the guy.
Let him turn it over, miss it. If he does, he does.
Yeah, and I think that he needs to have the wherewithal and trust, and maybe he doesn't, to kick it out when they do double him. Mm-hmm. I wonder if they will double in that kind of situation that late in the game to give up an open shot. Like I was watching I was very intently. I really wanted the Suns to make the playoffs, and I'm tired of Portland. They're the worst defensive team in the league, probably. And even though Dame has been absolutely exceptional, like, I'm just tired of it. So I really wanted Phoenix to make the playoffs. So I'm watching our Brooklyn Nets, Justin Anderson, Luau Cabarro, play Portland. And
what a
Karis LeVert,
reinforcement, by the way, of my Karis LeVert love in the bubble. Karis LeVert has been fucking awesome.
I've always loved Karis LeVert. He's the man.
Yeah.
So Karis LeVert basically takes over the game with 5 fouls and gets the rim and really putting pressure on defense. And then it's the last play of the game. They're down 1, and he doesn't want to give Dame any more time, which I totally get. And so he waits very long. And after, like, time and time again, getting to the rim, I think that he did not want to even consider passing the ball. And so rather than risking getting to the driving and someone in the defense collapsing on him and him kicking out to Joe Harris for the game-winning 3, I think he was just like, I'm holding on to this ball. I'm not doing anything. Mm-hmm. And he takes a step-back 20-footer. Mm-hmm. An awful shot. After possession of using his shiftiness and length to get pretty much wherever he wanted on that, like, right block, and spin away if he had to for a nice easy, like, 6-foot turnaround, and he takes a 20-footer. And so that's what I'm worried about. I don't want to happen with Embiid, right? Like, him being so concerned that he's like, I'm taking the shot, that he's willing to take a bad shot.
Fadeaway 17-footer.
Spinning away from the double team, which he
totally.
We saw him take that shot in those scrimmages or in the practices videos that we saw, that when we got hyped up about the Sixers being back, where it seemed like, oh my God, his like fadeaway and mid post game has never looked better.
And by the way, I would love that shot if it went in.
Totally,
it would be awesome.
Oh my God. Yeah. But, like, that's not an efficient shot. That's not the best shot we can get. I just want him to be, and he has been, this season, his assist rate and his passing out of double teams and his turning the ball over and his efficiency in the post, all of it has gone up each year. And so I just don't want him to, when the game is on the line, to go, I have to be the guy and shooting like a spinny, twirly fadeaway around like 3 guys.
You changed my mind. I'm actually going to go with Embiid again. You're right. I was hearkening back to our preseason pod where we had Derek on. Derek, who was on the podcast. When I was at the Blue Coats, and I asked him at the end of a game, would he rather give the ball to Trey Burke or Ben Simmons, and he wouldn't answer the question, which meant Trey Burke. And, like, so I was just thinking it has to be Alec Burks. Like, he's the only guy that'll get a shot. But you're right. Like, even if he has a better chance of doing it than Joel does, it's just at this point, it has to be Joel. It just has to be.
If it's in crunch time and it's like, there's multiple of those kinds of possessions, Tobias would be my second answer.
So you're here it is. Before we get to Zach, your prediction for Sixers Celtics.
I'm such a sad person. I'm such like a pathetic little idiot that's just willing to go into this friggin' guillotine over and over again with this team and believing that there's something there, and against all evidence, against really everything, health, Sixers in 5.
So my initial reaction when I wrote this for the round table was I think I had the Celtics in 7. And the reason I didn't have them in fewer games is because that would be less painful than getting to 7 games and losing in 7. So I think the Sixers are going to win in 7 games. And the reason I think they're going to win is that look, I have an extraordinary problem, and this is for the offseason, like an extraordinary problem with how Ben Simmons conducted himself before he got hurt on the court, given what the expectations were. I do think that there is a freedom that a lot of the ball handlers play when they do not play with on the Sixers, when they do not have to worry about making sure he gets the ball.
Totally.
And I think that, in addition to the Sixers having the best player on the court, which is Embiid, for one series has a real chance of working. And look, Embiid could get hurt in the first game and throw this out,
Sure.
yada, yada, yada. But if he doesn't, I just get the feeling that they're not letting us off the hook that easy. And
As good a reason as any.
yeah, and so I think they're going to win, and I have to email Adam and tell him to change my prediction. I think they're going to beat the Celtics. And by the way, having lived through at WIP, Nick Foles winning the Super Bowl, the Sixers winning a playoff series over the Celtics without Ben Simmons, causes the same sort of bullshit for us.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that we talk about it with Zach, and the Zach conversation happened before the Houston Rockets game, so just factor that.
Yeah, it happened on Friday.
The Embiid and Simmons are both excellent players, and they are not a perfect fit with each other, and it is on the front office to make that work. But because they are two guys that are not high volume shooters, and especially in the half court, take up a lot of the same space. When either of them is out, the team looks more fluid offensively. That happened when Embiid ran into Markel's shoulder and was out for the last however many games of that season, and the Sixers went on an undefeated run into the playoffs. And it's happening now without Simmons and other guys handling the ball. And so I just think that it is not a perfect fit. No one would ever say that it's a perfect fit, but they absolutely need each other, and a coach and a front office need to find a way to make it work, because I will simply not settle for the fact that, they're just better without each other, because they have been in the past. They're certainly not better without each other defensively. And offensively, it just will take more creativity and intentionality than this organization has given them so far.
I agree wholeheartedly. Will also take more buy-in from Ben, in my opinion.
Totally.
I do not think we've seen enough buy-in from Ben, and we have seen enough times where Embiid has publicly stated what he would like to see, and if for nothing else than to make Embiid feel like he's in it with him, I think it would be really important for Ben to show that. I
agree.
If for no basketball reason, but for a vibe reason alone.
I definitely agree, and it does seem like Ben and Joel have themselves become closer. Whatever depression that JJ Redick caused Embiid by not being there anymore, it does seem like Ben and Joel are depending on each other more and being like, we're the guys, we gotta be the guys here.
Before we get to our friend of the pod, Zach Lowe, let's talk about our sponsor, the Process Realtor, Adam Kasabi. It's spelled Ksebe if you want to Google him. You Google him, there's nothing bad. There's only this guy fucking hooking people up with homes, specifically in the Delaware beaches. I always talk about why it's great to buy in the Delaware beaches, and it is if you're looking for a second home, or even if you're retiring, you have enough money, you don't want to fucking live near a city or anything. Low property taxes. You can rent it out for good portions of the year, basically pay your mortgage. But now I want to talk about why Adam is the right guy. Adam is the right guy because he is one of us. And this is one of the things we saw with LL. One of the things we saw with Kornblau is that when we send our people to somebody for a big purchase, with LL like jewelry, with Kornblau like a lawyer, and with Adam Kasabi like a home, you want somebody who is really invested in making sure that you specifically are happy because you are part of this Ricky community. And Adam Kasabi is that guy. The amount of time he takes and the amount of care he puts into every transaction is meaningful. So he can't sell you a house in Jersey or Pennsylvania. However, when you're looking for somebody, he's your first resource, right? Because he is the person who is going to hook you up with the right realtor in the right place if it's not in the Delaware beaches. If you need to refinance like I just did, I just used Adam's refinance guy, basically saved 40 grand on the life of my loan. 2.75% is my refinance rate, which is fucking amazing. He'll help you with that. So any sort of realty like issue, Adam Kasabi is your guy. Go to processrealtor.com. And as I started at the beginning of this, if it's a home in the Delaware Beach, if you want a place to get away, a vacation spot that you can rent out the rest of the year and basically pay for your entire mortgage, Delaware's a great spot, whether it's in Lois or Rehoboth or Dewey or Bethany, wherever it is. He is a great resource as far as that goes. So 302-864-8643 is the phone number. You can call Adam or text Adam, or you can email him, adam@processrealtor.com. Adam Kasabi is the official realtor of the process. Zach Lowe time. Low Post, ESPN. I wanted you to know, first of all, welcome to and thank you for coming on The Right to Ricky Sanchez for the first time ever. To celebrate, for first time ever.
Oh, no. I know exactly where this is going.
I'm going to have one beer and the entire pod, just this beer, and as a celebration, as sort of like a welcome to the Ricky.
I wanted to address the elephant in the room right off the bat, which is the one beer thing.
Please.
So the one beer joke, which dogs me to this fucking day on Twitter, was a reference to when the trade deadline happened. I had one beer in my refrigerator and I wanted to drink a beer. Okay, so that is now taken on a life of I can only drink one beer. If I drink two beers, I'm sloppy and passed out. No, okay? I can only drink one beer at the trade deadline. You know why? Because I have to write. And if I have two beers, then I might write something a little bit regrettable or sloppy. I am fully capable of having two beers, even three. I might have two beers tonight because the NBA is essentially done and the playoffs are starting and my wife wants to spend a little quality time with me. So the one beer thing, I accept it. I take it. But I just want to give the full context of the single beer.
Finally, the record has been set.
Yeah. I went and I stopped off at a place near me that sells 6-packs, and I usually pick by the label, and I got it back, and it is a triple IPA, a 10.5%. Yeah, so I'm not really.
That's two beers.
Yeah,
that's two beers.
So you mentioned like all of the Mike had mentioned like last week that there was a NCAA tournament vibe to the games all day thing. Now I'm not a college basketball guy, and I know you're not a huge college basketball guy, but has that been the vibe for you? Has it just been in front of the television the whole time, or how have you handled all the games all the time?
I'm not a real-time watcher because I'm like super anal about saving time. So unless I'm at a game or it's like game 7, I do not watch a game live. So I'll let a game run to halftime and then I'll catch up, and by the end I'll be done. I also don't watch every game because you can't, even in this like 6 games a day, you can't. I try to pick 2 or 3 a day and focus on. So the more the March Madness to me has been the play-in thing, has been the March, the in the West has had the March Madness kind of vibe to it. But the playoffs are also going to be like afternoon games. That's going to be kind of cool.
Well, morning for me out West.
Yeah, that's right.
I have been watching almost every game to the detriment of my relationship and career. And do you watch so much basketball ever that it gets to a point where your brain starts to go numb a little, and it's just like you're confused as to what they're even doing out there? Because I'm just like, almost like you're looking at the word Seattle, and you're like, how's that Seattle? That doesn't look like Seattle. Like that kind of thing. Because I feel like that's the mush I'm living through.
Sometimes I should probably rewind the last 2 minutes because I just zoned out completely, and like players I didn't realize were in the game are now in the game. It's more that it's just like, do I really want to watch the Kings right now? Like, it's like Saturday night. Do I really need to be watching the Kings? But you end up watching the Kings because you got to see how they're going to fuck it up.
Yeah.
Well, So I'm actually curious about how, like in a normal regular season, like week or something, I'm curious about your watching habits, because there are a lot of national NBA writers who I am convinced, and I think we all do this to a certain extent, but sort of cull their thoughts and opinions from a lot of like everyone else, because there's a lot of, sometimes you just read someone else to get a better idea of what this team's doing, what that team's doing. Now I'm sure that you read, but I also am sure that you watch like an obscene, obsessive amount of basketball. So I guess I'm just curious, like in a given week, how much of it you are watching, and do you go into a game just to watch the game? Or are you looking for certain things? Like what is that process like for you?
So it's like shockingly uninteresting. I'm religious about 2 games a day. That's like, unless there's some travel circumstance or personal circumstance, I'm religious about 2 games a day. Sometimes I'll watch 3 or 2.5 or 2 in a crunch time. But 2 is like, I feel like that's kind of my responsibility. Like, I don't cover a team. I'm not a beat guy. If you're a beat guy, you can't watch another game. You're on your beat. That's it. I can watch 2 a day. People laugh at me because when I go to games, I like search out the seats if I can that have hardwired internet, because during commercials or timeouts, I will bring up another game to save time and watch that game. And the people around me are like, dude, are you really watching like Raptors Knicks right now? I'm like, yeah, the Knicks. I gotta watch the Knicks. I haven't watched the Knicks in a bit. But that's really all it is, and like that's why I'm super protective of time, because I just try to get as much done as I can in as little time as possible.
I imagine at some point, even now, you like, obviously you love basketball. That's my guess, right? Like
Yes.
you really enjoy it. This becomes a job, though. So I would imagine you still enjoy it, just enjoy it in a different way than you did when you started. Is there a sport, or is there a time that you're able to watch basketball in which you feel like you can enjoy sports like you did before they were your job?
There isn't a sport anymore, really, other than maybe the Olympics or something. Like if I love baseball. Baseball was neck and neck with basketball as my favorite sport growing up. If I try to turn on baseball games in the NBA offseason, it goes over very poorly in my house. Like we don't need to do sports right now. So I would say Final Four, because I'll watch the Final Four because it's such high drama. And in the NBA, what it is Game 7, because every game up to Game 7, you're always looking for like, what are the adjustments that the coaches have made? What adjustments should they make? What do I agree with? What do I disagree with? What's relevant for the next game? You get to Game 7, there is no next game. You can just, even if you're at the game, you can just sort of sit back and soak in the drama of it and the tension of it. So Game 7s are awesome, because that's when I feel most like a normal sports person.
All right, so all season long, and I imagine most of our listeners
enough
also,
about me. Let's get to the real meat potatoes.
Well, enough. I imagine most of our listeners also listen to your podcast, and so you've been sort of all season long really flirting with the idea, and sometimes married to it, of going full Sixers, and really like a team that you can't quit, and you pick them to get to the finals before the season, and just even in the face of all evidence, you kept riding for these guys as like the just sort of bad boy team that you just like, I can change them. Like I can change them, which I get, because we also feel the same way. But for our listeners, and maybe for your mental health, go through why you can't quit the Sixers.
Well, I'm getting close now with Simmons out, but I just like, I knew the risk they were taking with the Jimmy thing and moving on from the only guy they really trusted with the ball last year. But I just looked at their team and was like, man, that's a badass team. Like, that's a playoff team. They're maybe not a great regular season team. Like, they got stuff to figure out. But you get in the playoffs, they should be the best defensive team, and they should have a mismatch somewhere on the floor every single possession, even if it's not Embiid, that they can go to and exploit. And I talked myself into those 2 things. And even beyond that, I just think Joel Embiid can be the best player in the NBA. Like I don't need to tell you guys what the plus minus numbers were even in the Toronto series last year. It will haunt you for the rest of your lives that they could not even survive at all when he was on the bench. And so I just look at what he can do defensively, and I'm like, this team should be awesome. And they were built, I think, very much with Giannis in mind. And like they're pretty well equipped to give Giannis the closest thing to issues he has. I didn't think the Raptors were going to be quite this good, and I didn't think the Celtics were going to be quite this good. So that changed too. And the Heat, I was high on the Heat, but they're even better than I thought. But like pretty much everything has not gone according to plan for the Sixers, and it seems to be cresting right now. Like all year, I was like, I'm just gonna wait. I'm gonna wait. Playoffs. Now we get to the playoffs. Like Simmons is out, Embiid sprains his ankle. Shake Milton was going to be like the thing, and now that's not the thing anymore. That lineup is gone. I don't know what to do with myself.
Well, it's sort of funny. To Mike's point, it seems like everyone ignored like almost all evidence we had, at least on the court evidence. Like their defense is good, but it's like only just good. Their offense is like weird and clunky, and if you throw the numbers away and you watch it, it's horrifying. And then I know this sounds like take Master General, but it's like a real thing. Even before the season, you look at the team, and this is what I said. I was like, all right, it's the last 2 minutes of the game in the playoffs. Like, who's getting you a bucket? Because even at that point, Shake Milton didn't exist. And it doesn't seem, even in retrospect, if everything had gone right, it doesn't even seem like that question has an answer.
No, I don't think that's take Master General, whatever you said. I think that's the question a lot of us were asking early in the season. And I think we thought it'll just sort of be by collective. Like there'll be a Kemba Walker on the floor somewhere that somebody can post up on a switch, or Ben Simmons maybe will start shooting like a 3 a game, and so he can be in the corner and do something when Embiid gets doubled. And some of us thought, like I thought maybe Embiid could do it a little bit, even in 2020 when post guys don't do that. But this is why I'm curious for your take, because I know you have, how can I put this politely, we're not a Jimmy Butler guy. And I understand why, but the more I watch this team and the more I watch Jimmy in Miami, and I think Jimmy Butler is awesome, and I get all the reasons why he's worn out his welcome in some places, but it does seem like the bet they made there has gone bust on them, and they missed that kind of player.
Totally. I agree, though I think there was a rubber meets the road moment where I don't think Jimmy was coming back here with Ben Simmons being the point guard, and I also don't think he was coming back here with Brett Brown being the coach.
I think that is fair.
So the Sixers were presented, even with all the negative things I say about Jimmy Butler, and I think they're all true. He does, and I think some of the reason that he's succeeding in Miami is that everyone is just deferential to Jimmy, and I don't think that's like a championship team where everybody's deferential to Jimmy. He's not that good. But
maybe the players are. The organization, I don't like. Spo and Pat Riley don't play that game.
Right, the players are, for sure. So I think the problem that the Sixers were in, and look, they compounded it by the Harris thing and needing somebody, all that stuff. The problem that the Sixers were in were like, well, you see even today, Ben Simmons is still not that willing to be the off-ball guy. He was for about a half of a scrimmage, and that was it. So what were they going to do? You know what I mean? Like, and maybe a stronger coach, a stronger organization like Miami tells Ben Simmons, look, you're a third-year guy. You can't shoot. We're not going to win anything with you as the point guard. Here's the player you're going to be, and that guy's going to have the ball. But, like, that wasn't happening here. So I think I thought it was impossible.
To be clear, I don't know if what you said about Butler is true, about his Brett Brown and Ben Simmons thing, but I do think, what I meant when I said it's fair, I think, like, everything wasn't copacetic between all of those guys. Let's put it that way. Like there need to be things that were going to be hashed out, and instead of hashing them out, this is what happened. But yeah, it's hasn't worked out.
Well,
do you think?
Can I just ask one quick follow up? All right, let's say you're presented with that again. You have Embiid who loves Butler, Embiid who loves Redick, Butler who loves Embiid, Butler who says, let's throw the Brett Brown thing out of here. And let's say you can find maybe not fair value, but value for Ben Simmons somewhere. Would you have said, you know what? Embiid's the better guy right now. He's the championship guy. Butler's a great player. Let's go see what we can get for Ben Simmons and keep Jimmy Butler.
Knowing me, and I tend to trend conservative on those kind of things, my thing with the Simmons and Embiid thing is, A, they can win together. I think they can. No, I don't know if they will, but I think there are definitely universes where they can. And B, like, it's really scary to trade up 7 years in age which Simmons for Butler is, when the cornerstone you're keeping, that's in the younger age group, has had so many injury issues and is such a huge human being, that would scare me. And I think Ben Simmons is really, really good. Obviously has one huge flaw in his game, but I probably wouldn't have. So I agree with you. They were in a tough spot. I probably would have been afraid to. I would have kicked the can on that decision. And I think, by the way, if let's say they lose in the first round, there's going to be calls, even if Ben doesn't play at all in the series, which he probably won't. There are going to be calls like overhaul this, overhaul that. I think I would kick the can down the road another year with those two.
Yeah.
Totally. I think here's my prediction for the playoffs is either they somehow do well, get to the second or even conference finals, and then we're just tortured with Embiid, Simmons, have to trade one of them takes for all offseason, or Embiid gets hurt maybe a minute and a half into the series and they just totally roll over immediately. Yeah. There's no middle ground.
Yeah.
My question is, because I 100% believe that Embiid and Simmons can work together. Do they complement each other perfectly? No, of course not.
No.
But they are two excellent two-way players that a competent front office could build around. My question is, did this front office and ownership do almost everything wrong in building around them? Like, if they had maybe signed Kem Birch and Tony Bradley to be their point guard and shooting guard, maybe that would have been a worse decision. But aside from that,
they did some wrong stuff for sure. Now everything wrong. Again, I picked them to make the finals, right? So there seems to be a dissonance between picking them to make the finals and being like, well, the players they signed are bad. Sure. I don't think you can hold both of those things at the same time. Look, you can go fork in the road decisions, right? Like the Fultz trade is a disaster, and that's sort of thing number one. I think the Butler trade was fine. I'd have to go back and be like, obviously you would like more shooting, right? You'd like a couple more guys, not even just Redick style, but you'd like Mikal Bridges, for instance.
Sure.
A couple players of that ilk. But even that trade, people thought they won that trade. Like, oh, look at the value they got. Zaire Smith can jump out of the gym. They got an extra pick. So, I think you look at the Fultz trade and you look at the Harris trade, I think is the ones predating this season, at least, because the Horford thing was dicey, I think, from the start.
Yeah.
As the ones where you're like, ooh, that they gave up a lot, and I think Tobias is good, but he just is not good enough to justify that contract.
Yeah, he's good and he's gotten better, especially defensively. He needs to draw more fouls, which we had an article Mike O'Connor wrote on our site about how he can draw more fouls, which seems doable if he puts his mind to it. But that trade with the pick that they got in the Zaire trade and Shamet on his rookie contract, where they pulled
another pick and our pick this year,
right? Just for the opportunity to essentially max out an expiring Tobias Harris.
I tell you, the Clippers were very excited to make that trade.
Were they bidding against themselves, or were there other teams offering similar value?
I think they were bidding against themselves. I'd have to go back and look at notes and texts from that time, but I remember hearing a couple of days before that the Clippers were up to something, and something big. And I remember trying to imagine what it was. And Tobias was an obvious choice for what it would be, but I didn't think it would be the Sixers, and I didn't think it would be that much like Shamet. Shamet's interesting because as good as he is, and his skill set is valuable, he may be out of the Clippers rotation in the playoffs. I think there is sometimes a tendency to overrate guys once they leave. He's good, and I think he'll probably be pretty good, but is he changing your life? Maybe with Joel and Ben Simmons, he is changing your life. Maybe he is. I don't know.
They never thought that he could guard because it's just the way his frame is. But he plays hard on ball, and his movement and gravity that essentially was modeled after JJ would be really, really nice here on a rookie contract right now.
Yeah, they just need more shooting. They don't have enough outside shooting.
Yeah.
Do you think? Obviously, yes, but drilling down on it, because you picked the Sixers to get to the finals, that a team in 2020 can base their primary offensive option can be a post up,
and even if it's Embiid or just mismatches.
Yeah. But let's say Embiid, you're like your best player and your primary offensive. It to me, it just feels like so much work. Is to me.
I think to the reason I picked them in the beginning of the year, I really like their team. I think if that's the case, you have to have like a top 2 defense. Like you have to you're building your team less around post ups than you are around defense. So I think there is a mix where that can work, but it's an uphill battle in the sense that because you're not, I mean, everybody wants the alpha wing, right? Like Kawhi and KD and LeBron and Tatum maybe grows into that kind of player. And if you don't have that, it's an uphill battle to try to win the championship. But I think it's possible, but you better just be absolutely stifling on defense, which the Sixers, like you said before, they've been good, but not that.
We take a break from our chat with Zach Lowe to talk about our original sponsor, LL Pavorsky Jewelers, LL Pavorsky. Mike, a shocking number of people, 192 people, have purchased rings, engagement rings from LL who listen to the Ricky. Your comment on this shocking number?
I mean, just trucking along. I think LL is a little bit like and I'm saying this in a positive way, a natural disaster, in that you just can't stop it.
Inevitable.
You inevitably just can't stop it.
You see a tropical storm on the radar, and you're like, it's coming for us.
Just take shelter.
Yeah, we have to prepare. For the 100th, I volunteered to marry a couple, and I did not marry the 100th couple, though I met online the guy who bought the 100th ring. I did marry a couple. I'll do it again for the 200th once we have weddings again, if we would like. So we are closing in on 200 rings sold to rights to Ricky Sanchez listeners. It's unbelievable. Also, if you've already purchased your ring, you need wedding bands. LL is your guy. And if you're already done with all of that stuff, anniversary presents, anything at all, jewelry, it's good to have somebody who knows what they're doing, and good to have somebody who cares about you getting a good deal, because otherwise you don't know what the fuck you're looking at. I look at a diamond. I bought an engagement ring. I was like, I don't know. Is it good? And they go, it's good. You want to trust the person selling it to you. LL Pavorsky Jewelers, open on site by appointment only, 215-627-2252 to make an appointment. If you don't feel comfortable going to the store, that's cool. He can do it with you online. Just send him an email or shoot him a tweet. Email is lee@llpavorsky.com. Twitter is @llpavorsky, and the store right there is at 707 Walnut in Philadelphia. Of course, contributing to our wonderful charities quoted by kids at the Providence Animal Center. LL, also a sponsor of the Providence Animal Center, rights to Ricky Sanchez Bark in the Park run team. Once again, we will have that t-shirt information this week. LL Pavorsky Jewelers.
Hurricane LL.
Back to the Ricky.
What was the disconnect between the front office bringing in Horford on the big contract and the coaching staff not implementing him in a way that is successful? What didn't work that the front office thought would?
It's a good question, because when you said the coaching staff didn't implement, like I don't know how they're supposed to implement him. Like maybe he should post more mismatches if he has them. Maybe that's part of it. Although he hasn't been great at that this year. I don't know if they just got so freaked out by like, we have to win the minutes when Embiid rests, or we have to at least like survive the minutes when he rests. And I imagine there's like a little bit of an irrational exuberance within their front office. Like, oh, we figured out something cool and off the beaten path, and you kind of talk yourself into it a little bit. When you guys watch, like what should they be doing with Al Horford that they're I think they thought he would shoot better than 32% from three or 33%. That's one. I don't know what else they should do with him.
When he's shooting twice as many as he normally shoots, so him going from 35% to 33% doesn't seem unrealistic. I think the thing that is surprising to me, and we were talking about on the last pod, did you listen to Embiid on JJ Redick's podcast?
I haven't yet.
So like Embiid is so glowing about JJ, calls it the best offense in the NBA, that the dribble handoff they ran, says he'll never find another player who he clicks with like that. And here's a guy making, right. And here's a guy, and he said he was so depressed when him and Butler left that basketball was not the same to him anymore, and he was going through the motions. Right. So I look back and look.
You're a
I'm
Sixers
not
fan, man. This is it.
Right.
Welcome.
Right. So here is me, not a Reddit guy, 0% Reddit. Obviously good at what he does, but like was fine with them letting him go. But I hear the best player on the team saying that, and I see this guy that costs like $12 million, who Embiid is saying, all I want to do is play basketball with you. And then I see this guy making $30 million that plays the same position as Embiid or the same position as Harris or the same position as Simmons. And I just can't figure out where that disconnect is. Like why he's not LeBron, right? He doesn't get to approve every deal or whatever. But it just seems like it's so far apart from something he would want. And I just can't figure out how they make that decision in retrospect, knowing what I know now.
I mean, he's not LeBron, but he might be your LeBron. Like, he's
Right.
the most important player on your team, and he's one of the when he's ready to go, he's one of the 10 best players in the league.
Yeah.
I wouldn't proactively seek to do anything that like makes him suffer heartbreak. Like, that seems bad. But clearly the brain trust there is obsessed with size and defense and going against the grain a little bit. And I think they looked at JJ as like, it's hard to win the championship if you have one weak link, right? Like, that's all it takes. One weak link, one guy for Kawhi to be like, where's that guy? Let me go get him, or whoever to go. And like, maybe they overdid it in that direction a little bit.
That feels like the Sixers' MO since Hinkie left, which is like, have one thing and then we just like chase that thing down, which is, okay, Simmons as a straight up rookie, looked out of place in that Boston series when they lost in 5, and Embiid's second year first playoff appearance. But because they had won 16 games to end the season and went from like young, fun, up and coming team to like, oh shit, they could contend this year, and then disappointing against a Boston team without Kyrie, which I would argue they're better without Kyrie because Kyrie is a bad player when it comes to winning basketball games.
Wow.
Yeah, straight up. They like it accelerated the timeline so much. And then they were just like, we need to win right now. And part of that is because of Embiid's injury history, for sure. You don't know how long that clock is going to last. But I think part of it is just a level of impatience and a lack of respect or appreciation for continuity. And so going into this offseason, and we'll get to this Celtics series for sure, but going into this offseason, after a year of like clunky, doesn't really work, like I believe in Tobias as the third wheel between Ben and Joel, but adding Horford in there, all of them just like does not work no matter who that fifth guy is, even if it's Josh or JJ or whatever. How do you balance continuity with another massive overhaul of the roster?
I think they've now reached the point where the massive overhaul is going to be hard because they've put themselves in jail with contracts that are hard to trade. So like, you can make up all the fake Al Horford trades you want. There might be 3 that are like actually doable on that contract. Tobias's contract is freaking huge, man. I forget how big it is until I go on Basketball Insider Sixers. Like, oh my God, 37 in the so it's going to be hard for them to just straight up do that. But obviously, like, I would try to trade Al Horford. I don't think it's been a good fit. I don't think anyone could argue that it has been. I just don't know what you're going to get for him. If you're going to have to incentivize a team to take him, then that kind of hurts a little bit. But
well, the Mike Muscala pick we just got certainly helps. Soften
that's right.
Yeah.
I know you guys are celebrating that. It's funny how all these picks come, late in the season. Everyone's trying to jockeying for keeping a pick or not trading a pick, or Boston is watching the Memphis stuff really closely. They want Memphis's pick to roll over. I don't know what you do. I mean, continuity is important, but then you have a lot of teams who they make a couple of big changes and it clicks and they're fine. I just don't know what they do now. I mean, to me, it all goes back to Fultz. Like, if Fultz works, then Butler probably doesn't happen.
Nope.
Just like that. That's the thing that starts everything.
Absolutely.
I agree. That said, even after drafting Fultz, they they had a lineup that statistically was like the best in the NBA with Dario and Redick and Covington and Ben and Embiid. Like it just seemed, you mentioned Zach, you mentioned an obsession with size, and Mike mentioned impatience. It just, to me, it seems like the front office has continued to double down on that decision, and they won't. One of, and I'm saying this, one of Brian Colangelo's like issues is he won't just say, all right, well, I was wrong about this, so I got to do this. And it does seem like this front office, who is a lot of his guys, but so did a similar thing, and like, well, this one sort of superstar guy didn't work in Butler. Let's get another one in Harris. And like, wow, we're not complete yet. Let's get another one in Horford. He made a bunch of all-star teams, right? Like, it just seems like a continuous double down on this decision to go for it right now.
So,
no matter who the player is.
It's interesting. So I don't think a lot about the Butler trade, acquiring him much, because, Dario was almost out of the rotation for a bit in Phoenix, like hasn't lit the world on fire. Covington is like a 35% three-point shooter, really good defender. Like, Covington's solid. I just look at that as like, I would do that trade again. But what do you guys disagree? Do you guys think those guys, that fit was so good that even if the talent gap is what it is, you'd rather have all of that back?
I think what it would have allowed them to do, perhaps salary-wise, is just add somebody. It is like, instead of now, even at the time, I don't like Butler, but even at the time, I could justify it in the way that you were justifying it. But in retrospect, it does look like, well, you had two guys eventually on those big deals, and everyone just kept saying, well, we're going to have to pay Dario. Like, says who? Like, what are you going to have to pay Dario? $10 million a year? Like, I don't know what that concern is. So I think, I see that you can make an argument for the Butler trade. But it is the continual like double down on the speed up.
And even with those mistakes, how grand the mistakes were varies based on your opinion. But even with them, like, if they had just not signed Al Horford this offseason and instead got Malcolm Brogdon or Bojan Bogdanovic, different situation. Like, with Brogdon, way more creation, which they need, so they wouldn't be counting on essentially a rookie Shake Milton and to carry the offense off ball or with the handle as Ben set screens or does whatever he does, and Bojan as an excellent off ball shooter provides a lot of gravity there. They just, even with the mistakes, that's what kept happening. Like, Hinkie goes, Colangelo's here, and it's like for years it was like, well, he's still he's not doing anything great. Like, the Covington contract was really good, and a couple of those picks he hit on enough. But, it was just paper cut, and now we look around at, even in the last couple of years with Elton, has been like, I'm just bleeding all over the place, and we could have put a Band-Aid on at any point, and we just kept cutting ourselves.
So if they just let Butler walk, they have cap room. I'd have to go back and reverse engineer. They have cap room to pay a $20 million player last summer?
Yeah,
Not really. It's the Josh situation was like, either we get nothing or we get Josh. That was fine.
Right.
Yeah. Butler didn't want to be here with Ben and Brett. Fine. Josh, I thought, was a fine addition. But if that's one of those guys instead of Horford, then you're still in good shape. The problem is, you don't need to pay a backup center $109 million. And I don't Greg Monroe started in a playoff game. They're trying to count on Kyle O'Quinn for a little. Are there backup centers that exist? Would Ed Davis of 2015 have just done the job here?
Or would when your best player is a center? I mean, that's why Denver has gotten away with it, but they paid Mason Plumlee $15 million a year when their best player is their center, and they can't really play together, although they do a little bit. Yeah, it's they got away with it somehow.
Yeah.
Before we go ahead.
Oh no, I was getting into the Celtics series. If you
just one more question before the Celtics series. So a Ben Simmons question. If he were to never regularly shoot 3-pointers, and he's not a center, right? He's not a rim protector. What is the prototype or model or ceiling of a player who is like that doing what he does? Is it possible for him to be a top 15 player without taking a 3-point shot?
I think it is on the low end of like 12 to 15, but I think you mentioned that the first year they made the playoffs, and that streak they went on, that was without Embiid, right? That was when Simmons it was like Simmons and shooting, right? And so that's when everyone started to say, well, if you just built the Bucks built around Giannis and just like, and I always have resisted those comparisons because I think there's a very important like 10% difference between Simmons and Giannis in a lot of different ways.
Totally.
But I do think, that's why the fit isn't great between Joel and Ben. It's okay, but it's not great. But I do think in the right sort of environment, he can hit that level. I also think, like, I put him third team All NBA this year. Had the seeding games been included in the voting, I would have moved him out and moved Devin Booker or Brad Beal in or something like that. Mm-hmm. But I do think he is a better regular season player than playoffs player. Like the All NBA honors the regular season, right? Mm-hmm. Like I think he's a better regular season player because of his defense than he is in the playoffs when the game slows down and he's in the dunker spot all the time trying to figure out something to do.
All right, so Boston.
Again, Boston. It's always
which is fine.
By the way, you guys will like this. I'm in an ongoing argument with several people in the league. You know, when everyone likes to rank cities, like what's your favorite city to visit, this and that. Mm-hmm. Philly versus Boston is not only a basketball rivalry, it's like a which city do you prefer rivalry. And it's for me, it's not close. Like Philly is a better city. Philly is the most underrated. I said this on my own podcast. This is not catering to you. Philly's the most underrated city in America.
Well, we have nothing against being catered to, so that's either way would be totally fine.
When Andrew Yang was on, he said he would put Sam Hinkie in his cabinet. So saying Philly's a good city is not really catering.
Philly's an awesome city. Yeah. One of my best friends is from Philly. Like, I've got family in Philly. Philly's awesome. Boston's overrated.
Speaking of Boston being overrated, how do you think that that Boston will cover Joel in this series?
When Tice is in the game, they will have to send a lot of help and dare Embiid to beat them with his passing or to not turn the ball over 6 times a game, which I think he's gotten better at that. Canner and Williams, I think not single coverage, but that little like half help, like, are we helping? Are we not helping? Cat and mouse game. But I think for the Sixers to have any chance, I think Embiid has to have like a 32-15 kind of series. Like he's just got to have a ridiculous series.
What is the path there? If you were describing, you Zach Lowe are writing the Sixers advance to the second round over Boston in 6 or 7 games article. What are you play that out in your mind and like why it worked? How did it happen?
Embiid goes crazy. Averages like 5 assists and 2 turnovers a game, maybe 3 turnovers a game. And the team collectively shoots like 40% from 3. That's the only, and obviously plays good defense, but like it's gonna have to come. Embiid plus shooting, or like what passes is shooting for the Sixers, has to hit. And they figure out some answer to Tatum. I don't know, like Simmons was their answer to Tatum on defense. I don't know what it will be in this series, but it's pretty simple, right? Embiid and a bunch of shooting.
I look at Boston and it seems like when I'm watching them, they have a ton of really good players, right? I mean, like more good players than most NBA teams have, even the best NBA teams. Do you think that they are the biggest threat to Milwaukee, or do you think Toronto is in the Eastern Conference? Besides the Sixers. Besides the Sixers,
obviously, it goes without saying. So I've been saying Toronto for like most of the season. I still think Toronto. I think Toronto is a better team than Boston by a little bit, like in the aggregate. But I'm beginning to believe that Boston-Toronto is a bad matchup for Toronto and that Boston might win that series. So I don't know what that means for who's the biggest threat. Like if Toronto can't get to that series, they're not a threat. But I think in a vacuum, they're a little better equipped than Boston.
How do you feel about Embiid on Tatum? You move Horford to whatever the big is on Boston. You put Embiid on Tatum, and then you go with like Josh, Tobias, and Shake. You go like Kemba, Jalen, Hayward in some way.
I thought about it in previewing the series because they don't have a really good Tatum answer unless they start Tybal, which I think has some consequences for the other end of the floor that are pretty bad. I just like the ideal perimeter guy to guard Embiid, to have Embiid guard, is someone who you don't care if they shoot threes, so he can
Giannis.
have 1 foot in the lane. And like Tatum scares me a little bit. I get why, but it scares me a little bit. I'd rather have him guard like Hayward, frankly, than Tatum maybe. But I get what you're saying. Like they need someone to try to stop Tatum. What do you think they're going to do? Josh Richardson?
I think they'll throw different looks. I think Horford will take a swing. Horford and Embiid together without Simmons has not been bad, especially lately. They seem to play pretty well together. Having, Horford has not been as good of a rim protector as he has in the past, and like drop pick and roll with Horford just does not work in the way that it does with Embiid. But I think they'll throw different looks at everybody because without Ben, I do think they'll be scrambling a little bit to.
Horford's a good call. I wouldn't mind. I don't think it'll go great, but it's worth trying.
Why do you think that what defensively, what is the Sixers and Brett's problem with a Horford anchored defense?
Well, part of it is that he's a little bit worse than he has been in the past. He's getting older. Although he's looked healthier. Like I think the hiatus did him some good.
Totally.
Yeah, their bench guys are just okay other than Tybalt defense. Like this is the thing with the Brett stuff is I get it. I get why people are frustrated and impatient and think a coaching change is like almost inevitable and all, but like there are some things that maybe I can see doing differently, but like I don't watch the Sixers and think, well, I know a coach out there that can like immediately put these puzzle pieces into a place where they work a little bit better.
Yeah. I think and we've always been very pro Brett, and I don't think that he is the biggest issue. I just think that there is a point at which if the star players aren't going to fight for you, which I think they like him, but I don't know that they would fight for him. The moment to me, twice this year now, earlier this year, after Ben hit the three, Brett was like, I want to see one a game. We've turned the page, and he didn't shoot another one the whole year. And then we come back from the bubble, and Brett's like, you know what? There's been a change in this guy's vision, his mind, his approach. He's going to shoot threes. He's going to play the four. He's not starting at point guard. And then we saw the 2 threes in the scrimmage, and then it was gone for the rest of the time. And I just think
No, he took one. He took one more.
Oh, right. In the game that he got hurt.
Let's not miscount, okay? It's an easy count.
It's not that many to count.
I just think that, like, strategy-wise, I agree with you. I would say that he hasn't done anything to make it better this year, and then maybe he's just lost his way, and lost those 2 guys a little bit. So
there are times where it's just time. Like maybe this is the time, maybe it's not, but sometimes it's just time.
So you mentioned the Sixers bench guys just being fine, right? So they have locked in pretty much to play are Embiid, Tobias, Horford, Josh, and Shake. I think almost undoubtedly those guys will stay in the rotation and get major minutes. They really only need like 3 other guys to play. So who do you like out of the sort of slop at the bottom, which is Matisse, Korkmaz, Alec Burks, who's been a world beater intermittently and unplayable other times, Glenn Robinson, who I always love the idea of more than actually has existed at times this season. Mike Scott, who's had a little bit of a resurgence, and Raul Neto, who is like intermittently, the best penetrator on the team.
So definitely Alec Burks, because I just think he's totally feast or famine, as you described. But I think just the skill set he has is like so sorely needed on the team, and like there'll be just random games where he makes shots. So I definitely think him. I think you have to play Tybalt because he's just so good defensively. So that's 2. Not Glenn Robinson. Who am I forgetting? Oh,
Korkmaz, if you want to shoot.
I do like Korkmaz. I think Korkmaz has had kind of a nice season. I don't get why Mike Scott. It always seems like Mike Scott is like a dead-eye 3-point shooter, and then you look at the numbers like, oh, not really. Like I just feel like it should be Mike Scott, and I want it to be. I want to speak it into existence, like Brett tries to speak all these other things into existence, and it just doesn't quite work out. It should be Mike Scott, but maybe it's Korkmaz.
Talk about Matisse as a defender right now. What you see out of him that you like, and then the drawbacks. Obviously, he's a rookie, and so you don't expect as much as he's given you as a defender this early. But what do you like projecting him forward?
Are there drawbacks? Like the drawbacks are offense. Like he can't really dribble, and shooting's okay. But like I think he's the best rookie defensive wing I've ever seen, and like the way he closes space and changes directions and the deflections and all that is crazy. And I mean, I have to look at the numbers. Does he foul a lot? I feel like he probably fouls a lot. And,
they get him
so
with Tiggy Zach stuff a lot, yeah.
But I mean, I don't find a lot to complain about defensively with him.
Do you see him as because right now he plays more free safety, poke the ball out, and then like recover. He's got some of the fastest recovery and length speed I've ever seen. But as far as like guys taking it to him, he's still a little thin.
Yeah, he's a
strong.
rookie.
So the idea is like, do you see him projecting forward? Like, could he be a Kawhi level defensive stopper that you could just like put on someone and just like shut them down?
Right. So, or is he the guy that guards Kawhi and you don't have to send like an enormous amount of help? I think so. Like if he puts on weight, I think how he moves and how he uses his hands is so good that I think he can. But I get what you're saying. But the recovery speed, like Spike, I don't watch any. I'd never seen Matisse Thybulle play before the NBA. One of the first games of the season against the Hawks, he had a play where he like overran Kevin Huerter in transition. Like he flew to recover to stop a three, and Kevin Huerter pumped, and Matisse flew by him, changed directions, spun back and blocked the shot, and you could almost see Kevin Huerter be like, "What the fuck? Like that wasn't supposed to happen." It was amazing.
Yeah.
I aside from putting on weight, he needs to put on weight, and the 3-point shot needs to get better. I just want to see him dial in. I think there's a little bit of like, and it allows him to get a lot of steals and things like that. But there's like this, and I can't put I can't describe it totally. I always say he always looks like he's playing in an all-star game. Like there's a carefreeness and a sort of a carelessness to him that allows him to get those steals, but also like allows Kyle Lowry to bait him into three fouls in 3 minutes and makes him go for steals that he doesn't really need. And I just want him to dial in and maybe care is the wrong word, but focus a little bit more defensively.
Stay in the scheme. Stay in the scheme. He will. Yeah. Like that'll come. But I know they're thrilled, obviously, with what he's brought to the table this year.
For sure.
Before we let you go, I want to ask you two quick Zach questions, non-Sixers questions, and then we have something that our most esteemed guests do called Jigsaw, and we'll do that with you at the end. The first question is about. I remember when Grantland started, I thought to myself, here is a website specifically designed for me. I don't know how they did it, but like, I love everybody, and everybody writes about the shit that I care about. Is like the coolest thing that, aside from it introducing you to ESPN and really like putting you on this platform for your career, what are your like memories? When I ask you, what was Grantland like what are your memories of that time and that place?
It's interesting because Grantland was headquartered in LA. I lived in New York the whole time, so I was not like in a lot of meetings, right? Mm-hmm. But when we would have like the preseason meetings, there would be like 20 of us in a room, and Bill and Jacoby and Shea Serrano and me and Jason and all that, and it would be like, you'd look around and be like, oh, this is the whole thing. Like this is the whole company basically is in the room, and it felt like. And I was also so new to ESPN that I had no sense of like anything that was going on above me. I had no idea. I didn't know how the company worked. I still don't really know how the company works and all that. But so like whatever internecine warfare might have been happening, like, I was just unaware of it. I didn't care if ESPN.com ran my stuff or not. Like I was just happy to be working where I was working, and just that we were just this little idyllic little island over here that existed separate from ESPN almost, and it was a lot of fun. Like the people were fun. It was fun, but part of the reason it was fun is because I just wasn't involved in any of the decision making, and not that I am now, but like I didn't know anything that was going on. But it was cool. Like I remember when Grantland got axed. I don't know who organized it, but someone did like a Grantland appreciation night in New York, like at a bar. It was at some bar in the Village, and I went, and I was like, there was like hundreds of people there, and we all gave little speeches, and I remember being like, this is kind of crazy that like, I mean, you guys must feel it when you do your draft parties or when you have done your draft parties in the past. It's like, this is something about this hit the wavelength of a lot of people.
Yeah, for sure. It sort of reminded me of it happens. I've worked in radio for a long time when like a cool alternative radio station that doesn't get high enough ratings like goes off the air. All of a sudden, there's just this movement of people who are like, "What the fuck did you get rid of that station for?" And it reminded me of that. The other thing is and you're very self-effacing about like what you know and your basketball acumen, but it's obviously like really high. And I'm sure you've been asked this before, so I'm not going to ask if you would leave your job to work for a team. But what I would ask is what would be the thought process that would go through your mind if that were presented to you, like the pluses and minuses of doing what you do now compared to doing it for one specific organization?
Well, there are two very big minuses. Everyone assumes, not everyone, but like people assume that working for a team is like the be all end all. Anyone in the NBA anywhere wants to work for a team. And I actually don't think it's the be all end all for two reasons. Number one, the travel is absolutely hellish. Like just being away from your family that much, or even just like, it's just sort of expected you go to every single home game, no matter what you have going on, no matter if your kids have a little league game or whatever it is. And just even compared to media, the job security sucks. And like, I don't know what it feels like Bill got axed or Bill left ESPN, whatever happened. Like I still work at ESPN. Like that doesn't happen really in the NBA. Usually if your boss gets fired, you are just like default fired. Now
Not the Sixers.
Doesn't happen all the time. So those things would really, though, it's the travel. Like I don't have it in me to be going on a 16-day, 12-country, 15-city European trek to scout somebody I might pick 51st in the draft.
Mike, if you don't have anything else, I was going to give him a
Jigsaw. To wrap up the Celtics-Sixers series, I'm sure you're doing like a preview and a prediction and all that stuff, but Marcus Smart shot 37% from the field this year and 41% on twos. And I'm just so certain he's going to shoot 60% against the Celtics. Just not a doubt in my mind. Please tell me that I'm wrong in that assumption.
He shot that bad on twos? Oh my God.
He's going to kill us. He's going to fucking
kill us. He shot 41% on twos.
He's going to put Korkmaz in his pocket.
I mean, in fairness, he shoots more threes than twos, which is what you want. But I'll tell you, he is like, that dude is just launching as if he's JJ Redick. He doesn't care if someone's on him. He's launching threes. I don't think he's going to shoot that well. He'll have a game. He'll have one game where he's like 6 of 8. And it happens to be a game where like the Sixers lose by 2, so it really matters. It won't be like a game the Celtics win by 25. You're like, oh, who cares? He shot 6 for 8. It'll be the one the Sixers lose by 2. But the more annoying thing is he'll get like a stupid offensive rebound in crunch time, or like draw 2 charges in a row, and he'll be annoying. I think I kind of believe in the power of Marcus Smart. I've become a believer.
I really like Marcus Smart, and I really like Jaylen Brown a lot, and I don't like Jason Tatum at all. I will resent him for my entire life. My only prediction for this series, aside from that, is that there will be somehow a second iteration of the confetti game. I think the Orlando bubble people will just make it happen, and it's going to be.
I was at the confetti game.
Yeah, as was I.
It was awesome.
The craziest thing about it. So I was in a suite like on the second level, and it was very clear to me that it was a 2.
I could see it from the press seats. It was obvious.
Yeah. It's and the press seats are terrible in Philadelphia. They're behind the basket, like you can't see anything.
See, I thought that the person operating the confetti cannon actually had more authority than the refs. So him saying that it was a 3, I think should have just been like, well, the confetti guy said it.
But Philly is one of the arenas where I watch the game on the scoreboard for the most part. Like sometimes I'll watch the action on the floor, but the view is like you can't. It just is a bunch of bodies moving around in front of you.
All right, so the Jigsaw.
play.
I will play this game.
Game we play.
I will play this game.
I miss you.
I will play this game.
I'm worried. Play.
I will play this game.
And after the game, they were interviewing him, and they said, how does it feel to win the ultimate game? And he said, if it's the ultimate game, why are they playing it again next year?
The Jigsaw is essentially would you rather. Both situations are terrible. You have to pick one. Both are for the rest of your life.
Okay.
Option number one.
Okay.
Everything you eat for the rest of your life must get not a ton of, but a covering of melted nacho cheese sauce. So no matter what you're eating, it must be covered in nacho cheese sauce. You can pick the brand, so on and so. You can pick the heat level, but it's
Do I pick my meals? Can I tailor my meals so that they go well with that at least?
Sure, but that would mean that breakfast would go well with nacho cheese sauce, which I'm sure you could do, but you know. And this, if you were to have dessert at some point, dessert would have the nacho cheese. Like there's no cheese.
I'm not a big dessert guy, so I'm feeling good about option number one. I'm feeling not terrible about option number one.
Okay. Option number two.
That is a Gentile's stomach if I've ever heard one.
Yeah. Option number two.
Accurate.
And this is a Zach Lowe special. Option number two, 5 times a day, and I will give you the times. You have exactly 1 beer every day.
I knew we weren't going to get through the podcast without this coming back in. 5 times a day?
So 7 a.m., 11 a.m., 2 p.m., 6 p.m., and 10 p.m. You have exactly 1 beer. Now, you could have a light beer, but it cannot be like Mick Ultra. It's got to be a normal light beer if you decide on light beer.
I mean, so even if I'm at a game at 6 p.m., like pregame, I'm like, sorry, man, sorry, assistant coach, like, I got to go back and have a beer.
No, you have to have your 1 beer. You have to say it every time.
Yeah. Hey, guys, I got to go have 1 beer.
So I'm just thinking in practical terms, like, I would be unemployed if I chose option B. So I'm going to go with the nacho cheese. Like, I can make the nacho cheese work. You're right, I'll never have ice cream. I'll never have cake. That sucks. Breakfast is a challenge. But lunch and dinner, I feel pretty like I can put nacho cheese on chicken, meatloaf, lots of different stuff. Like, I'm going nacho cheese.
Yeah. Having stomach attacks every meal is worse for me than being just lightly drunk. I think I could absorb it.
I think I could see completely drunk the whole day. I would be I guess I'm probably killing myself a little bit either way, but I'd be unable to feed my family in scenario B. So I'm gonna go scenario A.
Sure.
That's good logic. I appreciate you coming on, man. This was great. Good luck with the rest of the playoffs. I know for me, and we only do a podcast about one team, I saw the playoff schedule for the Sixers, and I was like, every other fucking day, I was like, come on, man. It's going to be a lot for you, but it'll be fun. So at least we have it.
Hey, we had 4 months of nothing, so can't complain about that. Well, I appreciate you guys having me on. I'm a listener. I can't say I listen to every one, but I listen now and then, and obviously I'm obsessed with the Sixers. So it's interesting because I'm literally right now reading Yaron Weitzman's book about tanking to the top, and there's I was unexpectedly there's a lovely section about you guys, and I assume you've read the book. It's quite nice.
Yeah, well, he knew. We've sort of set the stage that if you're writing this fucking book about this thing and we are not featured, you are not getting any.
It's sort of like a microcosm. It's a microcosm of, the Sixers were 37-2 at home this season because they were scared of being booed, and I think that's what Spike and I have done to people writing books about the process.
That's awesome.
Yeah, Yaron did a good job though. We had him on the pod. He did a really good job.
He got. I mean, I still have about 50 pages left, but he got some stuff that hasn't been out there yet. He got some real stuff, which is which is the way teams are covered these days. That's a really intimidating mountain to climb, to write a book and be like, I got to get a lot of stuff that no one's gotten yet.
Yeah.
Especially about this thing, because the team is so sensitive about it and they've told everyone to shut the fuck up. So for him to have gotten that stuff is good, is impressive.
Yep.
Thank you, Zach.
All right. Thank you, Zach.
All right, guys. My pleasure. Have fun.
Well, it was good to have Zach Lowe on the pod, Mike. Finally. It's been a long time coming.
Yeah, for sure.
Shared 1 beer. 1 beer, the three of us.
Just the one.
1 beer. Well, we will see you after every playoff game, like fucking torturing again.
That's
Here
right.
we go. Yeah.
Well, willingly walking back into a fire.
Yep. MOC, Michael Connor will join us after the first game. We will see you that night. Beat the Celtics. What is it? Bleedo Green.
Bleedo Green.
Bleedo Green.
Bleedo Green, baby. Cuss cries.
Are you done with TTP?
Yeah, you know Bleedo.
If you don't fuck with me,
then I won't fuck with you.
if you don't fuck with me, then I won't fuck with you.
If you don't fuck with me, then I won't fuck with you.
If you don't fuck with me,
Then I won't fuck with you.
But if you fuck with me,
I'm gonna fucking kill you!
Time for plan B.